Welcome to Build Out with Jim Kunkel, your go-to broadcast for learning more about business in the real world. Your host, Jim Kunkel, who is an accomplished professional in business development, sales, and marketing, and is a technical content creator along with being a rising influencer on LinkedIn. On Build Out, you'll get the latest information and knowledge from subject matter experts from across the globe. Okay, let's get this Build Out broadcast started. And here's your host, Jim Kunkel.
Welcome to Build Out. I'm Jim Kunkel. Joining me today as my guest is Doug Klingensmith from USI Groups. Doug, welcome.
Thanks for having me on, Jim. It's great to be here at Build Out.
It's great to have you on. You and I have had some conversations ongoing for quite a number of months, and I believe probably a few years that we've probably known each other through interactions within the industries that we work in. Hey, Doug, for the viewers who might not know you or USI Groups, if you could do a favor, cover your professional background, and then also talk about USI Groups, what makes you very unique, and then what you do in the industries.
Okay, thanks, Jim. My background has always been in sales. I started in sales in college and worked for a national chemical company out of Cleveland, Ohio back in the 90s. And probably would have been there for a long time, but they decided they wanted me to learn how to sell fasteners as well as chemicals. And in making a career change, I ended up with a Belzona distributor for about 18 months, which is really where I cut my teeth into coatings and composite repair systems, and helped that distributor grow by about 54% in 18 months. And if you ever worked somewhere where you felt like, oh, it's going to work out, but maybe it won't work out, I had a plan B, and I'm glad I had a plan B and a plan C, because after doubling the sales team and growing sales, I ended up being unemployed and being told, Doug, today's your last day. And I said, Jim, you just fired your best salesperson. And although my plan B was to work for a fastener company out of the East Coast, I ended up talking to my girlfriend, Tiffany, now wife, and 51% owner of Unconventional Solutions, about starting a business. And that's kind of how Unconventional Solutions started, was on a shoestring and a lot of hope and determination, and out of a home office with a closet for storing products. So that's kind of how we got started, Jim.
Yeah, and I think what I find unique about your story is, of having all that change, all that disruption, and also a lot of, causes a lot of angst and everything like that. And you never gave up. You persevered through. You reinvented yourself, and you are that example, that 0 to a million, and that's why I think your story is so important to talk about. And when we really look at steps of starting a business from zero, it's an interesting thing, because when you look across history, you see a lot of examples of it. Bill Gates comes to mind with Microsoft, where he literally, started with a loan from his father, and he really kind of rose up after being introduced to an operating system that IBM just really didn't want anything to do with. And so you hear these stories, and I think people love to really kind of look at those stories, and then also in their personal self, and say, that's really what I aspire to do. That's what I want to do. But I feel like I have to have a lot of money in the bank, or I've got to have a certain type of condition existing to be able to do it. And I think what I find unique about some of these stories is that anybody can go start from zero and to grow a business. Not to say it's easy to do, and I think you're going to provide a lot of that background. But also, I think what it is you have to be committed to yourself, to your goal, your mission, and you have to persevere through and follow through with all the steps. But the most important step that, I look at when it comes to starting a business from zero, and this is, I think, a critical step that a lot of people don't follow through properly, is researching your market. With your current business, how much research did you do before you launched?
Jim, I'd love to say I did, night in, night out research, but I was already somewhat engaged in the business-to-business sector. So literally, I just went to clients the old-fashioned way, face-to-face, belly-to-belly, and just started selling products and solutions because I think where a lot of businesses struggle is maybe they get analysis paralysis and
Yeah.
overthink their strategy, and nothing happens until a sale's made. In fact, you made me think of a story of a book I was reading about the beginning of Sam Adams brewery. I like a good beer from time to time. And the best advice the founder of that company, got from his dad was, hey, take a 6-pack of beer and go sell it to a bar and to see if anybody wants to drink it. So you got to test your product, your solutions. Unconventional Solutions has always been about solving problems for customers. And our first month, we sold about $20,000. And our second year, we sold, I want to say, about $300,000 to $400,000.
Beautiful. Yeah, beautiful. And I think really for you, you had a lot of that background, your experience, you had a lot of that research really all done. It was, to your point, you really had to get out there. And I like the analysis, the paralysis by analysis and all that. You can't over research. You got to make sure you get to a point where you feel comfortable that it's time to hit the go button, but you're going to test out everything. You're going to really prove out everything by getting out there in the field and listening. And this is the thing I picked up from you and talking with you, is that you're an incredible active listener, but you're also too a very intuitive problem solver as well. So whatever your customers really needed to have, you were able to be a solution provider, and that in turn really helped benefit you to grow your company to double, triple, and go even higher when it comes to sales. Now, when you set initial goals and you were really looking at financial goals, both in profitability, revenue, how difficult was it for you to kind of establish realistic goals at the beginning, or how did you kind of benchmark what you were looking to make in those first couple of years?
That's a great question, Jim. And I've always been a big believer in the BAB, the forecast, and the big, hairy, audacious goal. The BAB is the bare acceptable bottom. That is, if I break my leg and have to drag myself on every sales call, I'll figure out a way to get this number. The projections, more of the midterm goal, and then the big, hairy, audacious goal is just that, if you hit it, you're excited. And I think that's the key to forecasting is it's just a number. It's just a plan. In fact, I think a famous general once said a good plan today is better than a perfect plan tomorrow. And when you're setting those budgetary numbers, I'm going to tell the audience a big key with the finances is keeping costs low. I mean, I literally started out of my house. Our first warehouse we built in my backyard, a 3-car garage, with the idea that just 1/3 of it would be for warehousing, and the top part was like a mother-in-law suite that we made into offices. And we outgrew that in a couple years and expanded to an office where we actually just dug a cable underneath our neighbor's yard. Of course, we asked for permission to do that, and set up a second office to increase the staff. And a few years after that, we bought a 8,000 square foot warehouse. So you got to really manage those finances to keep them in line with your sales objectives and goals. Because I think where so many businesses fail is they want to buy fancy office furniture. They want to overinvest in marketing literature. But unless your concept is successful, none of that really matters.
That's a great point. And, in a previous guest that I had, we were talking about kind of the company hoteling, and where you have companies that kind of share these buildings where they have different suites and you can operate out of them. During the pandemic, a lot of companies went to working from remote. A lot of companies are doing kind of a blended return back. So they really started to understand that there are ways to gain some efficiencies In some cases, they can still even manage their employees, even though they might be working remote, but it gives them a lot of flexibility. Now, when it comes to, the next step that I really look at when it comes to starting a business, from zero to a million or to millions, is that when it comes to the marketing aspect and promotion and things like that, the nice thing about today's technology, you and I are doing a broadcast right now. This is a vehicle, a method where maybe you are doing broadcast and you're talking about solutions, you're talking about problems, and you're offering, recommendations on how to deal with them. Or maybe you could be doing a live stream. For example, Amazon has Amazon Live, and people actually go on and sell their products through their live broadcast on Amazon.com. So there's different ways that people can go to market. For you with Unconventional Solutions, how did you tackle that initial marketing element of the company?
Initially, it was a lot of old-fashioned belly-to-belly, face-to-face, making sales calls, just because I had a network to grow from. And then one of our associates, when we were working out of our garage, said, "Hey, this come up with a newsletter," and we would blind copy 200 people back in the day, a newsletter, and actually got a decent order out of that with Ford Motor Company for a grip system on a stainless steel conveyor system. So like you mentioned, there's a lot more tools. So I think it was a few months after that, we invested in like a constant contacts. Mm-hmm. And so for years, if you go to our website, we have lots of newsletters.
Yeah.
That we blast out to customers. But I also like to use them in sales calls. If somebody forgets an appointment or isn't there, I'll leave that behind as like a teaser for them to at least know I showed up, and even if they're not there.
Yeah, those leave behinds are real important. And to your point too, and that's another recommendation, is the email list. Email lists are gold. And email, people thought email is going to be dead in a number of years. It's still very viable. It's a great opportunity. Your newsletter that you have, that is very impactful. The information that you do put out there and provide, that also helps to really help drive the messaging, but also too keeps your clients, even your prospects as well, up to date on to what not only USI offers, but also to what others that might be watching and looking at ways to really kind of promote their products or services. When you launch a product, you're working with multiple different type of product solutions. How difficult is it to launch a product or a service into an industry like the ones that USI services?
It could be extremely challenging. In fact, we've had some manufacturers have us attempt to help them get products to market, and sometimes it's just not the right fit. You just gotta have pig-headed determination. And there was a product about a year and a half ago that Jerry Holton out of New York and I tried to get off the ground. And although it was a neat coating, it was a self-healing coating, it required minimal surface prep. It just never gained traction. We're pretty heavily into oil and gas, as well as heavy industry like steel and power plants and water and wastewater. But we just couldn't gain traction. So we decided to drop pushing the product line and went to other products that are gaining traction faster.
Yeah, that makes sense to be able to, analyze what's working, what's not working. And then to your point, I think probably too, you were getting a lot of feedback from customers as well. Not that the product had any challenges or issues, but, maybe it just wasn't the right time, or, depending on how, products have a life cycle. So, a lot of times that can come into play as well. When you look at, recommending to somebody, let's say you're mentoring somebody who wants to start a business, my idea has always been to start as soon as you can. And I know that can be difficult for a lot of people because they feel like they have to be 100% ready, or they've got to jump through a lot of hurdles. Or to your point, when you said, they got to have an office building, or they got to have staff and things like that. you started from the home, and then you grew the business from there. What do you recommend to people if they are kind of hesitant about starting a business, but they are very passionate about launching a business?
It's kind of like swimming in a pool. If you try to test the water too much with your big toe, you'll say it's too cold, I'm getting rejection. You just got to just dive in and start swimming and making the water warm, because customers are always going to have some buyer's resistance. But if they feel you're passionate and believe in what you're selling and what you're offering, I was taught or read somewhere, or just have always believed something about people don't buy because they know it's a good decision. People buy when they feel it's a good decision for them. So that they're really, to your point, Jim, you can't really test the waters if you want to be an entrepreneur. You just got to go out and make it happen.
Yeah, and to kind of have a different conversation from what we're having right now, some of the ideas that I have found online about recommendations on businesses you can start from nothing. The first one is becoming a reseller, and there are a lot of products and goods that can be, even services too, that can be used in a reseller situation where manufacturers, and I've encountered some manufacturers that don't have a sales team, and so you have people that function as manufacturer representatives. I'm not sure with your background, and maybe you have done this where you've had manufacturers come to you saying, "Hey, Doug, we've got this product. Here's what it does," and it kind of fits within what your company does or what you're doing right now. How prevalent is that when it comes to being a reseller? Have you had experience with that?
Yeah, that's primarily what we do as a distributor. Is we purchase products, stock them, and restock them for our customers. So I think that's a great way if somebody wants to be in business, is to be a reseller. Some situations you don't necessarily have to carry the stock; the manufacturer will carry the stock for you. But at USI, we build our reputation on fast, friendly service and delivery. So if we think a product's a winner, we're usually stocking it so people can pick it up same day, or we can ship it out to them next day.
Yeah, that makes sense, and probably even so more today with supply chain issues, and also related to even sometimes commodities or raw materials that go into the different products. If you have inventory on hand, at least you know where your position is if you have customers coming to you asking for product, and lead times and delivery dates and things like that. Is it, in this current state of the economy, is it more beneficial to be a stocking distributor versus just kind of passing through products when you get orders?
We prefer to keep it in stock, just because, like you mentioned, we can control how much we have. There is risk involved with that. Like if you have a product that's designed for cold weather and you run out of, and all of a sudden the weather turns warm on you, it's going to hurt sales. But definitely we've been real happy with being a stocking distributor at Unconventional Solutions.
That's really good. Yeah. And then the another one that's really popular, and I looked at it kind of expanding on this a little differently related to services, but you could start a recruitment service. A lot of companies we've gone through, and you and I talked prior to the broadcast here, we were talking about the Great Resignation. There are companies, there are organizations that are having difficulty securing not only professionals, but also when it comes to craft workers or other type of employment positions within some of these companies. So that's right now seems to be a very good opportunity to kind of go in there and help companies recruit, find talent, and then also help them in the onboarding process as well. Now we're currently dealing in a situation with runaway inflation. We've got energy prices really at an all-time high. Businesses are really starting probably to look to cut back, but we're still in a hot economy. And Doug, do you agree that we're still kind of in a hot economy right now?
Oh, absolutely. We had a record 2021, and 2022 is looking just as strong. And to your point about a service industry, we've actually picked up a lot of training. We do some. Not only do we sell products, but we also will come on site to clients to train for a fee. So definitely a fee-based business model can be very profitable because really your only cost is your people cost. So
That's a good point too. So maybe as a professional, you have that skill set, that background where you might be able to go in and do some professional training, or you could do some skills-based training and expand your business from there. So, looking at recruitment, training, maybe even some other services that you might be able to provide. I've got a lot of friends that, have retired and they're now active inspectors on their own, doing coatings inspection work. So, there are ways to transition from, working for somebody to, working for yourself and starting your own company. The third one is what you do, when you're a distributor, when you're out there and you're having products, and sometimes it could be services too, that you're distributing, for your focus, you talked about earlier, you were working related to chemicals, and then you were said, hey, your employer said, we want you to go out and talk about fasteners. Those are two different types of commodities and two different things. But, and you think about it, chemical plants, they probably go through a lot of fasteners. So, when you have, for yourself being a distributor, you stock products, how many different types of industries, let's say, based on your core focus, can you actually touch at any given time?
Our product or our market industry is quite broad, but we try to stay focused on oil and gas, heavy manufacturing, power, facility maintenance, agricultural. We have some repair composites that offer people an alternative to welding, which according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, there's like 560,000 people injured every year through welding accidents. So we offer some cold weld alternatives for those industries. And I think I mentioned water and wastewater as well. Those are kind of the industries we touch. But really, you're only limited by your resources. For your audience, though, I'd recommend if they have some previous industry experience, stick with what they know best and sharpen their skills, hone their value proposition down with an industry they're most comfortable with. And then as you outgrow that industry or you feel you have too much time on your hands, you can look to diversify into other industries.
Yeah, and as you're growing your company, for example, if you just start out in the oil and gas industry and you're providing all that the products and services or solutions and services, from there could be other industries that might not be directly related, but they're using the same type of products or services, and it makes sense as you're growing as a company. Maybe you're adding on staff that are more precise or experienced in those different industries to be able to help you augment and to be able to sell into those markets. So, that's a great way to focus and to grow your business, so that you're just not fixated in one particular area. Because as I think you probably will agree to this, when you're dealing with just say, for example, oil and gas, it goes through a boom and bust cycle. Now they still have maintenance. They still need to, paint their assets and all these other things. They need to do all that work. But a lot of times you have decisions that are made on certain size projects based off where we're at right now when it comes to budgets or the current state of, is it $100 a barrel or is the market at $1.50 a gallon gas? Then there's certain projects that get done or get prioritized and everything like that. When you look at the aspect of is there any concern when it comes to the growth of a company? Should anybody be mindful and say, listen, we're kind of expanding out. We've got people asking us to provide all these other products. Is there any type of red flags that should be aware that if anybody viewing this episode should say, hey, this is a red flag. If you're kind of getting out ahead of yourself, you could get into trouble. And we've seen companies, at least I've seen companies, do that where they overextend themselves and then they find that they put themselves in a financial burden in a bad position.
No, that's a great point, Jim. And I would highly recommend that people pause when they're asked to go in a different direction and analyze if that market really is as valid as they think it is. We sometimes pause. We were pretty strong in automotive in 2005, 2006, and I could feel the market changing. And that's actually when I first started calling on natural gas facilities, and that ended up being a smart move. We didn't forget automotive. We just kind of spent less resources there. So you just want to invest your resources where you think the markets are growing.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. And the last part of our conversation, I wanted to cover. There's 4 stages when it comes to business growth. The first one we talked about at the beginning, and you provided a lot of background regarding the startup. And then the second step is a growth, and you go through a maturity, and the third phase. The fourth one I want to focus with you in our conversation to kind of finish up the episode is renewal or decline. And what renewal means is that when you grow a business and you get to a point of maturity, that should be a opportunity for you to, in some cases, maybe reinvent yourself, renew yourself. Because if you don't do that, the alternative is going to be that on that product cycle or business cycle where you start to decline. And you don't want to have that decline happen because it can kill your business. Some companies I've seen, they might get to that maturity phase and they might decide to cash out and sell their business to another entities. I've seen that happen a lot. But then also too, I've got friends that work yourself. You're in this same situation where your business is continually growing, and so you're renewing the business. How hard is it to understand when you're at that maturity phase, and then how difficult is it to go through that renewal, in your opinion?
That's a good point, Jim, and it's very important in my experience to take time out once a year and just put yourself in a quiet space, whether that's your house or a vacation spot, and ask yourself some of those tough questions like, are you maturing in an industry or in your marketplace? And a wise sales manager of mine, Mark Fortuna, once said, every year you got to reinvent yourself. And you pointed that out as well. So is it going to be with new customers? Are you going to target 3 or 4 new customers that year? Are you going to bring on a new product line? Are you going to hire 2 new salespeople for key markets in your regions or geographic reach or space? And I've always been taught, if you're green, you grow. If you're brown, you die. So you got to stay green and young and grow.
Yeah, and there's historical stories, not really stories, but examples of where maturity happens. And the one always pointed out is Kodak. Kodak really, ruled the market when it came to those cameras. You had film, you had the cameras that, disposable cameras where you take the photos. But then, as the technology and the industry kind of advanced, we went from being an analog to physical photographs. And you remember the old Polaroid days.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you went into digital, and yet Kodak, really, they controlled that market so much, they just really didn't chase after. And even like an IBM, for example, where IBM was in the 50s through the 60s and the 70s, and then we went into the desktop phase, and they also struggled too because there were a lot of things that they did not, really look at the maturity of the market and say we need to renew ourselves. So you find examples of that. And when I was in college, I remember a professor always talked about the horse buggy whip manufacturers. They kept saying, these steam automotives, they're never going to catch on. But, again, there are probably a lot of those companies that made horse whips that probably reinvented themselves, and they started making components that went into cars for you never know. So, that renewal was an important element of it. And, I think the thing with it is that you really have to be able to do, like you said, take that time out and be able to reassess You're going to have a marketing plan that you have done every year. You have your goals and your objectives. And the other thing is you're going to see those financial results. And as you start to see that trending line to start to level and then start to decline, that's probably your biggest indicator that something's got to change.
Absolutely, Jim. And to your point, I'd also say you can't get too comfortable. It's real easy to fall into a rut, which is nothing but a grave with the ends kicked out. So you have to think back and say, hey, how are you going to reinvent yourself? In fact, I think when Steve Jobs was still alive and he left Apple, I think Apple had gotten up to like 400 or 500 product lines. And then when he came back, he said, hey, guys, you got 400 products, but they all suck. So we need to focus on just 5 or 10 products and make them really good. And so renewal could be just downsizing your product offering in some cases.
Yeah, and the one thing that Steve Jobs said, and I remember when he said this at one of the Apple events, he said that, if Apple would ever invent a pencil, that would be another death sign of Apple. And I have my Apple Pencil here, which I use a lot. But, to his point, he was more about you don't need to have 400 products. You got to have core products that people want to buy and people are continuously looking to help them out or to better their life or to solve their problems. That's more important than having hundreds and hundreds of SKUs. So that's a good point. That's a really good point. Doug, we've had a great conversation here about growing your business. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you would want to leave with the viewers?
I wowould say just make sure you're planning and make sure you're committed to your goals and never give up, because it's real easy to plateau. We've plateaued a couple times where, the from like 1.8 million to 2 million, it seemed like it was tough to get over that 2 million mark. And then from like 3 to 3.2 million, it seemed like we plateaued. And last year, Tiffany and I just talked and we decided we want to go for like 1.5 million in growth, and somehow it came about. So you just got to kind of reinvent yourself and stay committed. And eventually you'll pop through to that next level and enjoy the benefits and the fun.
Yeah, that is. I like that. Enjoy the benefits and the fun.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
You got to have fun in business. Doug, for viewers who would want to get in contact with you, do you have any social media? Is it through LinkedIn the best way to get in contact with you? Or?
LinkedIn's great. I have both a personal LinkedIn account as well as our Unconventional Solutions LinkedIn account, and I'm also on Facebook. I have a Twitter account, but I don't think I get on that very often. But that would be fine, or they could call our office or email me.
Excellent. And for everyone, please check out Doug also with USI. That's it. Unconventional
Solutions Inc.
There we go. Sorry about that. I got a little tongue tied.
That's okay. That's kind of why we've gone more to USI groups, because when I say Unconventional Solutions Inc., people are always like, can you spell that for me?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I do like the name of the company. It's a great one to remember and everything like that. So, Doug, I appreciate this opportunity and have a great day.
Appreciate your show, Jim. Thank you. Have a great day yourself.
Okay. Everybody have a good day.
Enjoy.
I hope you found value with today's Build Out broadcast. Make sure you connect with Jim on LinkedIn and subscribe to his YouTube channel. This way you'll be notified on new live streams and when new content is released. Please give today's broadcast a like and share with your connections and colleagues. Thanks for watching, and please visit buildoutproductions.com for additional content and to join the mailing list so you can keep updated on other streams and quality content from the creators on the Build Out Productions team.